Hi and welcome everyone. We are now, I think, in hour 9. Is that correct?
Yep.
Of our 24 hours of UX marathon grassroots community event. Really amazing to see one community that came back after 1 year to our event. UX Beijing was already there at the 24 hours of UX last year when it initially was started by Peter and Jesse. So great to have you here. And I will shortly give this session to you session owners. Just a quick introduction to where you are or where you have landed here. The session is about a globalist, a view of the cross-cultural differences in a digital product, as already mentioned by UX Beijing. And for anyone who's here in the first session, you have the possibility, if you have kind of a lagging network, to go on the top bottom right to go to low fidelity or audio only. So you can still join the session and stay here with low bandwidth. You can also just put emojis on if you like something really much. You can ask questions. They will be answered after the talk. If I got it right, you just go onto the Q&A as soon as you finished your talk. And if you have anything else you want to share, just share it on the chat with us. Always great to see people from everywhere joining their thoughts here. I'm not sure if the closed captions are back. If they are, you won't see one of mine, but usually speakers have captions. You can enable it when clicking on the CC right at the bottom of your screen. And one thing that I want to introduce to really get you engaged, everyone who's out there, maybe grab a drink or something to eat, probably, and take a selfie while watching this and share it on our Miro board. So we know who's really in here and really engaged. And I think that's it from my side. Now I hand over to UX Beijing and hope you enjoy this session. The stage is yours.
Thanks a lot. I'm uploading the PDF file of the presentation. Just wait a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually posted something in our UX Beijing group. Not sure whether we see people from all over the world.
Do you guys see my presentation? Is it live?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Then let's start. Thank you all very much for joining today's talk at 24 Hours of UX. We actually participated in this conference last year and learned a lot, and it was a really awesome experience. So this year we decided to participate once again and share a little bit of our thoughts and ideas. So first, let me introduce UX Beijing. It's a meetup community of designers and researchers in the field of user experience. It's based in Beijing, yet now many of our members are located all around the globe. Similar to our speakers, they're spread from Beijing to Paris, to Vancouver, to St. Petersburg today. Yeah, so I think only Pine is now physically located in Beijing.
Yeah.
UX Beijing has been founded in 2014, so it's like around 7 years old, and there are around 600 members currently in the community. So our today's talk is called Globalist View of the Cross-Cultural Differences in Digital Product Creation. It's a long name, but basically it's a combination of our personal and professional experiences in the context of Beijing and China in general. So we just want to share our view and ideas related to the subject. And we're going to do it through a discussion of how culture is actually influencing processes, methods of work from different fields, technology, startup, digital product creation in general. And we're going to do it through a fireside chat between ourselves on the 4 topics. First one being product design, second product management, remote work, work culture, and creativity in general. And there are 4 speakers today, including myself. Let me first quickly introduce myself and how I know the other 3 speakers, and each of them can take it from there. So my name is Vlad, and I'm currently working as a product designer at Safety Wing. It's a remote company building a country on the internet, or to be more specific, a social safety net on the web. Previously, I worked in Steakfish. It was a Chinese company with offices in Beijing, Korea, and Thailand. And yeah, I basically lived most of my life in Beijing for around 16 years and worked in various companies in China. Right now, I'm based in Russia. Pine is a friend of mine. We worked a long time ago in a company called Location Hunter, and he's the organizer of UX Beijing. We worked with Ben in a company called Glue Up. Now it's called Glue Up. Before it was Event Bank, and he was the product director there. I worked as a mobile product manager, and Andy worked with Pine some time ago on things related to design consultancy. Okay, passing it to Pine, and then from left to right, you guys feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, Vlad introduced me quite well, and thank you all for watching and for attending this session. And we're very happy to be here again this year. And so my name is Pine, and I'm from China. I work in Beijing, and I organize UX Beijing, this meetup group in general. Also, I'm the general manager of my company. It's called Can, and I'm the general manager of the Beijing office, which is actually the main entity of the software business. And also, I'm leading the product here. I know Vlad for a long time. I also know Andy for a long time. We used to run a design studio together. And also with this event, I know Ben. Ben?
Yeah, thank you, Pine. Thank you, Vlad, as well. Hello, everybody. So I'm Benoit Reulier, Ben. For my background, I'm a product manager. So I'm not a designer, I'm a product manager. We'll talk a bit about product management in this session as well. In terms of background, I started as entrepreneur in France during a few years, and then I went to China, where I spent 4 years. First as a product manager and as a product director, so working closely with designer, with researcher, and other product manager in Beijing. So I was based in Beijing, working at Glue Up, a company where we were really an international team with people from all over the world, but mostly people from China, and working on a product which as well was spreading and having users all over Asia Pacific. And now I'm based in Paris, working for Algolia as lead product manager. So Algolia, we are a SaaS platform for building a search as a service. Maybe you know this company. And I hand over to Andy for the last presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, Vlad, and Pine. Yeah, it's great to meet everyone virtually. I'm Andy Liu. I'm currently based in Vancouver, Canada. For a long time, I've been, in Beijing. I'm actually from Beijing. As for my background, I had an engineering degree, which is a bit different from design, and then I switched to HCI, Human Computer Interaction Research, in Canada around 10 years ago, and I started my career in Vancouver around 9 years ago, in a design consulting firm, which is similar to what Ideal and Frog is doing, and then I moved to an in-house company doing SaaS product in North America for a bit over a year, and then moved back to China in 2015. Started my first company with Pine, and after a year or two, I spin off, and started another company called Future Form, which is a design consulting firm for emerging technology. We specialize in artificial intelligence and IoT and robotics and all that. And the company has been working with startups and Fortune 500s from Canada, United States, and within China. My latest act is Better Lab, which is a venture studio. We partner with technology teams and also ventures, VC firms to actually provide design and technology solution, also strategy solutions to early stage startups. So that's it for me. I'll pass it back to Vlad.
Thanks a lot. Thanks all guys for the introduction. I guess I'll just sum it up with a little bit more of information. So we're expats and locals who were working in Beijing or are still working in Beijing or plan to work in Beijing at some point. Our field of work expands from startups to SaaS to design consultancies, fintech, insurtech, and even blockchain. And we are trying our best in this session to combine local international views. Yeah, and let's start from our first topic, being the product design. So you can see that on the left we have some bullet points. It's basically some information that we combine based on some previous discussions and calls with the speakers. On the bottom right, you have a sneak peek or some sort of information that you can take away. And on the top right, we have the main questions or subtopics of the main topic. The whole thing is happening around talking about, for example, product design in China and comparing to the world, which is US, Europe, and any other country that we worked in. And I guess let's start from the role of product design in Chinese companies, in companies in Beijing, compared to Europe or the US. Maybe Andy. Andy, what do you think about the difference between the role of product design?
I think it's similar in the sense that there's difference. I always see product design. I used to not think this way, but in recent years, I started to think that design is actually a cultural thing, especially when it comes to business culture or innovation culture or creative culture. So I'm seeing there's a lot of audience outside of China and apparently don't speak Chinese at all. I received all my education outside of China. My undergrad was in Singapore, and then I received my grad education in United States and Canada. And design-wise, I was entirely trained to think in a Western setting where we follow methodology and all that, and try to provide evidence-based design approach. And I moved back to China with all that experience, and then I think I encountered a lot of culture shock when I first moved back. I kind of felt like companies are way more result-driven and sometimes sort of not following enough on the rigid process we in the West try to propose. At first, I was a bit confused, and even I was trying to educate the peers, right, or the clients. I still remember when I was working in Canada or North America in general, all the client workshop session we were trying to run, everyone tried to participate. And then in China, it's mostly like the boss has to be there, or else it just doesn't get things done because everyone is trying to wait for the boss to make a decision. So I think all that small stuff, nuanced sort of like decision-making process had an effect towards how a design decision is made. So that's my 2 cents for now. I would pass to other gents in a chat room.
Maybe Pine, what are your thoughts on the topic? Maybe expand a little bit more on the user experience side of design. And I know that Ben also has some thoughts related to product management and user experience design work.
Yeah, it's it's quite interesting because when later we have screenshots of the Chinese apps, and also you can see the difference. We have Chinese apps and also like a popular Western apps. It's very, very interesting because in most, as far as I know, most Chinese internet like software companies, there's no product designer. This role, like most of them, the product, the apps are designed mostly by product managers in China, in Chinese companies, and also they are very KPI driven. Well, I would say, like Andy just shared, I think the better managed companies, in the better managed companies, it's more OKR or KPI driven, or maybe like I would say on the other hand, it's more like a boss subjective idea driven. But every design decision you make, I could see a trend over the past few years. It's like every design decision you make on the product design, you need to have a purpose. Like before, it was less. It was more subjective. It was more like a boss subjective idea. And as time passed by, as those companies they compete against each other, as they evolve, it's more like a culture growing, which is KPI driven. Every design decision you make, it needs to have a purpose, very clear purpose, and that leads to, because it's really business driven, then you would see a reflection of the company probably, which is like many business lines or many business units, they compete each other, and on that user interface, on the space of the screen, they compete against each other and they try to win a better place. And then the designer becomes very frustrated and has to squeeze everything together. You can see that from the design. That's my point.
I also see that happening because of the mega apps ecosystem, right? Because the app is not an app anymore, not a one functionality app. It actually builds a lot of things inside, right? So the space that you have in the interface becomes a space of discussion, which feature should grab more of your attention. Yeah, that's a really good point. Ben, do you have any thoughts on product design in Europe and in France and Paris compared to China? I know that there is a huge difference in that.
Yeah, maybe I will be a bit more short on this topic, but that's true that there is one thing that was already mentioned and will, I guess, come back all over this presentation, is the fact that you really have a fast pace when working in China. It drives everything from product management, from product design. So it means that most of the time you will really be focused on fast iteration, making sure that you provide a solution quickly, even if it means sometimes skipping a few steps of a classic process, really driven by the impact, the result, measuring the success. For me, as a product manager, collaborating as well with designer, one key thing is really this mix of role. And I think we'll talk again about it when we will talk about product management. The fact that we really expect product manager to drive more design decision, even to have skills related to product design, because at some point there were overlaps. So it's really something that is which was the main difference for me when I joined China, understanding how those two roles collaborate, how the definition changed a bit compared to what I used to have. And if I can add one last point in terms of product design, there is as well really understanding the code and the design practice that you may have in China, especially driven by the mega apps that you mentioned, Vlad. So, for example, WeChat, Alibaba, the fact that you have one app which includes a lot of services inside, that people are used to access a lot of content, that as well those mega apps have a huge impact on how you design a new product, because you need most of the time to integrate at some point with some of those mega ecosystem. It will influence your design. You need to always think how at some point those mega apps will influence your product, even if you are a third-party product.
Wonderful.
I would just like to add one thing that, you know, in our deck there, we have high contact culture versus low contact culture. I think the thing I want to make is, you know, the point I want to make is that, let's say China and Japan, if you look at, you know, the websites, a lot of apps there, it's like you see a lot of like information overload. It's like too many noises, you know, on an app. It's like versus like Nordic countries, right? Or like, you know, West European or North America countries, you know, design is supposed to be minimalistic, you know, and that's where minimalistic design is sort of you know, originated from, and all that, you know, simple is better philosophy. And I think sort of simple is better philosophy doesn't really apply too well in China. If you look at this, you know, all these apps, right, like WeChat and all, you know, like Groupon of China and whatnot, it's like if you come from the Western setting, you're like, this is bad design, right? But it does work. And I think it's really, in a way, better from a efficiency perspective. And I think in high context culture, because I think, say, China, Japan, you have very crowded, I would say, you know, population, just like more people within space in a physical setting. And that sort of like, you know, nudged people's sort of like cognitive behavior to sort of compete or just like get things fast. I think it's like I'm trying to really, you know, loosely comprehend things, but I think all those mentality does, you know, influence how people design and how people perceive design. So that's something I want to make. I wish there's more study on this, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like also one thing that I was constantly thinking about when I was looking at the design. So here we have the high context culture, and the next slide in the contrast we'll put the low context culture designs. So on the left you see Pinduoduo, it's a group purchasing application. In the middle you see Taobao, it's like an eBay in China. And on the right you see Meituan. It initially was just a food delivery app, but now it does everything. Literally everything.
Oh, but the Meituan is like Chinese. It's the original, the first Chinese version of Groupon.
Okay.
Yeah. But like as you it's it could be surprising if I say this, but these designs are the results so far after many versions of evolution. I think it must be contributing business value quite well for these companies, because they have been trying, because they are already different from maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's already less already less busy, I would say. But that it's still pretty busy. But this, like it must be. It's not like they have never done any changes. It's the result after those changes. Yeah.
And also, I like the point that actually it's not just what the users or what the companies are creating, it's also what the customers are okay with, right? So this is kind of the normal amount of information and visual attention for people that are using those applications. And in contrast, on the next slide, we'll see the low context culture being presented in the designs of IKEA, Airbnb, and Allen healthcare application, right? So you can really see the difference and how those cultures are influencing the products, at least from the visual perspective. And you can also imagine how many flows are in just like one of the flow, let's say purchasing something on Taobao compared to booking a flat on Airbnb.
Yeah, I see Peter raising hands right now, and I see a couple of 2 questions from Peter. I
think fine. We'll have the Q&A session at the end, so
okay.
That's good because we have a limited time on each of the topics and we still have quite a few to go to. So yeah, we'll leave those questions to the Q&A, and we'll have some time for that as well. Sorry about that. Moving to the next topic of product management, I have to say that it's quite interesting, but I think all of us worked as product managers at some point. So I worked as a mobile product manager, Pine worked as product manager, but the longest champion of product management is Benoit here. So I think he can take a little bit of lead on this slide.
Yes, thank you.
Take it away, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding product management in China, maybe the best is to start by my experience when I arrived first in Beijing. What was really impressive for me was really the pace, the ambition, the fact that everything was going very fast in the society, but as well in terms of digital world and product management. So it was the first thing that really shocked me when I arrived, that I have to adapt when I came working into Beijing, was really first understanding that as a PM, everything is going fast. Everything is as well bigger. All the numbers that you are looking at compared to my previous experience in Europe were like way bigger. It's not the same scale, and it's a tough market. Like you have very tough competition. Everybody is trying to be successful. You will have a lot of competitor in one space, which even more encourage the idea of going fast to succeed. So this is really something that when I joined, like was a key discovery for me. Maybe a second thing which is important in terms of product management is really, as we mentioned before, understanding those super apps and the impact of the super apps. I can take a few examples. We were building a SaaS platform at GlowUp, SaaS platform to organize events management for event management. But when you are building a product for the Chinese market, at some point you need to integrate with those super apps. So you need to make sure that you have the login system that will include the login of WeChat or other platform. You need to support the payment method, which are at some point linked to one of those mega platforms. You need to make sure that you can share at some point the content into those mega platforms. So understanding those local products, those local giants, was as well key for me as a product manager to make sure that I can quickly work with my team on designing the right solution for our user and for our customer. Maybe a few other things that was really striking me when working as a product manager. So we already mentioned the fact that product manager and designer are at some point a mixed role. I help a few designers to become product manager. It's really something that we see often when working in China. Designer wants to move to a product manager role, or vice versa, as Vlad mentioned. There is here as well people who did the opposite, or at some point work as product managers and move as designer. I have a few other things that maybe are worth to mention. The fact that you tend to really first develop for mobile. Mobile is key in China. It's the case for several other countries in the world, but me coming from Europe, where we were still first focused, especially at the time, mostly focused on the laptop experience. It was a key change, a key change of focus when we had to take decision. So maybe I can let Pine, Andy, and you, Vlad, build on this. But here are some first key elements related to the difference of product management between Western and China, and especially for someone who discover product management in China. It was my experience.
Wonderful, Ben. Thanks a lot for all that insightful information. We have around 1 minute left on this topic, so guys, please jump right in and share your thoughts.
Like two cents from me. I would say in China, like it's number one is cut a business or a product is cut into many pieces, especially in bigger companies, and cut into many pieces, and like each small one is being charged by one product manager. So a product manager might only be able to do like one small piece. And also number two is usually in the better ones, the product managers are more like pretty dictating things, like Ben just mentioned, like from the KPI in all the way to the actual design. It's also like all decided by the product manager. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in the West, product manager also have, I would say, have contribution on design, especially in B2B or SaaS product, because they talk to customer a bit more and they actually refine and they're closer to the business logic and the customer. And I think that's why in the West, a lot of designers are having fears to jump into like 2B product or B2B product. I think the situation is even like more towards that in China, where product manager will have a larger role in terms of defining the product. And a lot of times, I see product managers doing, I would say 50% of the UX work in China. So that would be my 2 cents.
Wonderful, thank you. I guess one thing that I can tell about or share about product management is actually like my first positions in tech companies were related to product management. So I started to do things related to product management before I actually started design. And, it kind of brought me to an understanding that I want to design more stuff. So it helped me to understand, the real passion for creating things, to design versus to manage. So this is something that I have learned, and I guess it's kind of a rare opportunity for someone in the beginning of their career to learn something like that. Yeah, and I guess at some point it's because it's thanks to China, to the experience that I had in China. We're moving to our next topic, and it's work culture. So I know it's a big topic and we can expand a lot on it. Let me share a little bit about 996. So 996 derives its name for the requirement for employees to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week for 72 hours per week in total. It's something that Chinese companies have adopted to their system as an official schedule of working. And it's called by some critics as the modern slavery. But at some point, it's also, it comes with bonuses as an incentive for those overworking hours. So this is like a bit of explanation on the 996 that is constantly used in China. Yeah, so what do you guys think about this 996 system? How do you feel it relates to company culture and burnout in general? And I also would like Ben to share a little bit of how it's happening, like the opposite way of 996 in Paris and in Europe.
Maybe I can start quickly. Yeah, that's true that the work culture is very intense in China. It was as well, once again, one of the key things that I had to discover and to adapt when I arrived in Beijing. It's directly tied to a few things, I think, to the fact that China is and was growing fast. So you had a lot of opportunity on the Chinese market. Every company wanted to, at some point, succeed on this market. Everybody wanted to take a piece of this growing market. So you have a lot of opportunities, a lot of competition, which leads at some point to a very intense work culture. It can lead as well to big rewards. So one key thing for me between the Chinese work culture and the Western work culture is really the way, as an employee, you are compensated. So in Western country, we tend to have stock option in the startup world, while in China, it will most of the time be focused on big bonuses in cash and pure money at the end of the year or at the end of a big project. This is something that will change as well the connection with the culture. And as Ben mentioned, clearly see as well a difference. It's not the same pace. It's not the same work culture. Working back in Europe, we clearly have more boundaries between work and personal life. More clear as well time frame, like working on the weekend is not something which is expected. So you see a clear difference when you're working in Boston.
Yeah, I would like to add something because so my role is more like a manager and I operate a company myself. We have 10 people right now. I'm one of the partner. So I manage my design team and I manage technology team to a certain degree. I hate to say that, but I think 996 is really driven by competition. Sometimes we have investor giving pressure. Sometimes we have, just competition is there, right? Our client has pressure, and there's a lot of too much competition there in China. And the thing is, I am totally for like balanced culture. My biggest influence in terms of running companies from Basecamp or 37 Signals, right? Like, it's like doing smart things, and doesn't mean to be crazy at work. Probably some of you have read that. It's mostly about how to, I think we all work in creative field. Creativity doesn't come from hard work or busy work. You have to be relaxed to actually create. And I think that's something, as I want to manifest that in my work while running my team. Actually, one of the team member is within the audience right now. She's based in China right now. But it's hard. It's very, very hard. And I always try to find a balance. Sometimes when we work with American clients or Canadian clients, which we had early this year for a couple months, it feels really different. Like from 6 p.m., like no one will actually nudge you on Slack, right? And I think when it comes to China, it's like, no, weekend people would send you stuff, and sometimes you have to send stuff to other people. So, it's a tough call. And I do, see, our friends saying 996 is a big no, but yeah, totally hear that. I think, I think it requires the business landscape to change. But I do notice that, in Japan, overwork culture became a thing after early 90s when economy collapsed. And I think China is going through some of that, where 996 is becoming more of an overwork culture. And we'll see how that will play out in the next couple of years or 10 years. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah. So I let me add something from another perspective. It's very, very realistic that Andy shared this insight. It's really driven by competition, and why is that? My personal views is it's basically there are less and less low-hanging fruits. By low-hanging fruits, I mean you because China's economy has been open for only 40 years. Most of the other countries, it was never closed. It was never very restricted. But China, it was super communism times, and it has been just open gradually for 40 years. And during this time, basically you copy from US, like US at Google, you do something here in China, you just copy it, it works here, right? Because it solves a lot of problems already. But when the economy, when the country evolves, the problems can be solved by universal problems that can be solved by business services, by commercial services. Is less. It's more like local, very, very local problems. And then you would need to really think hard. You need to really work hard to identify those problems and bring very original solutions. And this is the time that China is entering right now. And but at the same time, the management mindset is also old mindset. What is old mindset? Basically, you need to, this is not working. We need to find something that's working, and we need to work hard, work longer to find something that's working for this in order to make money, in order to solve this particular problem, which has never been seen, right? Which has never been known and realized. And like this is just the general thing. I call this external reason, which is from business side, and there's also like internal reason, which is from every individual's situation, and also the social situation, which is the the anxiety of people's every individual, especially in first tier city, and also like the whole general society wise, China has entered the aging problem, because like it's like the whole structure of the society is there are less and less young people, and the elder people are still there. So younger people has more pressure naturally, because they need to raise more people. When they have children, they also need to raise their children, and like all these things coming together, it makes people work hard. It makes small business owner naturally want to work hard, work longer in order to make money. And also the problems are harder to be solved. Yeah, I think that's it. And I have no better conclusion. It's just for us to see how it works later.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add one thing, right? I see a lot of great comments in the chats. I think what might change the situation is that if startups or businesses in China from day one they focus on global market. Why? I think if you focus entirely on Chinese market, which is a very natural thing for Chinese to do, because like it's your language, it's not other people's language. You know the market, you have all the connection to the resources and money and talents, all that. Yeah, you go for Chinese market. But when you go for Chinese market, it's very easy to lose into that rabbit hole of competition, because everyone is looking at Chinese market. And so I'm trying to do the opposite, and it's not easy, but I do see trends. I do see small trends. Let's say you probably know this like mind mapping tool XMind. Very few people know that it's actually from Shenzhen. It's operated by like a 50 people team, and the CEO is sometimes living in this a Sydney, right? Like not in Shenzhen. He's traveling a lot and just living his life. I know this guy, and I was impressed a lot at first when I noticed that it's not a firm in the States or Europe. And I think when you escape competition, not escape the Chinese competition and focus your energy and your product onto the global audience, and you make something like a bit small but like like well made, there's a market. I mean, you do feel a bit less within the group in China because they're focused on the Chinese market. But I think that's a potential leeway to escape from that kind of competition. That would be my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Andy. One of the small things that I would add on the work culture part is I felt a big difference working in international or companies on the West, is that separating, like having your work to be your part of the life is the decision that you make. When in China, it's often just automatically combined, and it's usually done through the tools, right? So you have Slack for like professional communication, and that's wonderful. I love that, right? And then I can use all other tools for personal communication. When in China, everything is basically in WeChat, so you can't do anything about it other than that. For example, just having like a work WeChat and have 2 phones at the same time. Yeah, so this was something that I noticed. Okay, so let's wrap this topic and move to the next one. We're a little bit short on time here. The next one is related to remote work, and it's remote work in China, especially with the situation of COVID-19 happening. So my kind of understanding and perspective on this one is that COVID-19 gave a boost of remote work in China, but then because the pandemic kind of ended real quickly in China, everyone got back to office. So there was a short taste of remote work, but not for long. What do you guys think? Like, what would be the future of remote work in China?
I think in general, China is not in general, it's not ready for a time of remote work. It didn't happen. If we had to, it might be if we were just only restricted, maybe we will adopt that. But I think it's generally not ready. One for one thing is it's just everyone is back in office, and for another is I think the remote mode makes the hardworking, the 996 we just mentioned, it's made it even stronger, even worse, I would say, because it just becomes literally 24 hours, and yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I used to not believe in pure remote work. I used to operate my team entirely in Beijing. I need an office, and I go to the office every day. I need that kind of safety net. Sitting in the office, meeting my team every day. Ever since pandemic happened, excuse me. I moved back to Canada just right before the pandemic, and all my work shifted to pure remote in the past year and a half. And now for Battle Lab, which is my new team with the new technology team, everything is remote. And we have designer in Canada, designer in China and the States, but also developer in Berlin, right, and in China. We're mostly Chinese. The funny thing is we're mostly not seeing each other face to face. The partners know each other, but I'm believing it after trying it. So I think I think the tough thing, for remote work is that you gotta try it before you know how good it is. I mean, there are certain things that you will miss, for face-to-face work, because, especially for creative work, it's really hard to do brainstorming session and workshop from a remote basis. But I think there will be a fine balance. And what I think is that I do agree with Pine that it's very hard to, I think in the States or say North America, right? Because the pandemic is getting close to over, well, let's hope. And companies are actually starting, opening up their office around later this year. So we'll see how that will play out. I believe there will be a hybrid culture where people choose to go back to the team in office. People choose to work remote. And there will be some, hiccups here and there. But I think there will be a hybrid ratio, right? Within China, the ratio is not even there, right? So I think it's really about how do we really nudge for that ratio to come about? Because I think for remote work, it means individual freedom. You can sit in a sofa and work. You can lie down, you can work in the park as long as you have internet connection. So for our industry, so I think companies or countries that embrace remote culture more respect individual freedom more. That would be my 2 cents.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, I will go very quickly on my side. Basically, I completely agree with what just Pine and Andy mentioned. During my experience in China, I worked during almost 4 years with people who were remote. It was working, it was possible. It was something that we were able to achieve. Mostly Westerner were working from the US or from Europe, but it was already something that we had as well few remote colleagues in China, but it was not the main culture. And when I talk with friends who are still based in China, just this morning I was talking with a friend working in a startup. It strikes me recalling the fact that he worked during almost a year remotely due to the pandemic. But now that the situation starts to become a bit more normal, the company is not sure if they will continue with the remote policy. It looks like he will have to go back to the office. While all my friends in Europe working in other startups or even in the US, everybody is currently working about what will be the next new way of working between hybrid, between full remote. So I clearly see a difference, just talking between with friends about the different dynamic, the fact that indeed in China we are not yet at the level of full remote culture.
On my side, I was working most of the time in the office in Beijing till the moment I found myself looking for a job, like to work in international companies, and then I worked in a few, but then I didn't find the one that I like, so I turned into remote work. Even before remote work was a hype, even before it was the COVID situation. And after I got the taste of it, first of all, I understood it's hard, right? It requires more process, more methodologies, more communication, more openness, and a lot of work from the CEO and the stakeholders for it to work. But after a few years, I think that it would be really hard for me to go back to office. I mean, for a few days maybe, but not full time. We have 10 minutes left, and let me wrap it up with a few takeaways. Some of them were not mentioned, but I still wrote them here. The first one is that next generation of tech giants with a greater focus on design and product are already there. So let's say that BAT, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, they were the first generation of tech giants, and they were not that focused on products, are now being rivaled by TMD that are producing high quality products and focusing on design a lot in their process. There is less focus on process mixed with speed, a little bit of chaos, and that sometimes brings innovation. I mean, you can quote me on this one, but this is kind of what I feel. And it's really interesting that the innovation is happening in China, but it's just sometimes slow and quite rare. A little bit of stuff that product managers need to do when they're working in China or working with Chinese companies is to know design, especially user experience design, support things with wireframes and things like that. Working culture is focused around working hard and overtime bonuses, that 996 that we talked about. Ambitions are growing and standards are getting higher, thus the work is getting harder. It also connects to the outside factors that Pine mentioned. Remote work didn't take off, but there is still hope that with more China-based teams that are trying to build global products, it will grow. And the last but not least is the gap between West and China is getting smaller and smaller. We see that the processes, the operation style is getting more and more similar. And I think at some point it's also related to tools that are being used, because tools bring certain processes in the companies. Thus, the gap is becoming smaller and smaller. A little job ad from my side. I'm working in a company called Safety Wing right now, and it's actually like one of the best companies I worked for. We're building a country on the internet, social safety net. We're remote and spread all around the globe, basically like this conference. And we're desperately looking for awesome product designers, and I know that there are some of you out there in the audience. So please feel free to apply. This message will be pinned in the group chat, and feel free to, I don't know, or just add me on Facebook and talk to me about it. The last slide, on the last slide before the Q&A, I would like to thank Pine, Andy, and Ben for joining me in this conversation. It's been wonderful. I think there will be like at least 1.5 years or like 2 years since I met Pine in China, because I've been like moving a lot. it's been quite a few years since I met Benoit in China. I think that was as well, and same goes for Andy. And also, like, double thanks for Andy for joining at 6 in the morning. Thank you, guys. I guess we have 5 minutes left, and we'll go to the Q&A. Yeah, so here comes the Q&A.
So sorry to interrupt just before the Q&A. Thank you for this great session. It was amazing, really, and a very open discussion. Just a little pause to inform you that there is another session beginning in a few minutes. So if you want to listen to it, you need to go back to the schedule by clicking the arrow on the top left corner, and you can select the next session there. But if you want to stay for the current topic and you feel it's very relevant to you, feel free to stay here longer with the organizers and participate to the Q&A. And you can still go to a next talk whenever you feel like it.
Yeah, the upcoming talks are from Sikai and about UX in practice, and UX Geneva on elevating in the elevating UX session. So 2 talks in parallel coming up, but I think there are so many questions, so we will definitely have a Q&A here, and anyone who stays with us in the Q&A, I think everyone of UX Beijing is up to the Q&A, so we will stay here and answer most of the questions, probably not all, but at least most of them. I hope so. And a great session so far. Applause from my side. And here it comes from the audience. So back to you on the stage, and anyone is welcome to stay here, and I get back and hide myself so you can do the Q&A.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. As far as I remember, for people that want to come on stage and ask the question live, they need to raise their hand, and then the host can bring them on stage. So you have to keep your hand raised, and that will happen. Okay, so I guess now we're having our Q&A session. I don't know, maybe each of us can grab a question that they think is interesting and kind of reply to that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll go with the first one. The one Kat M asked, wonder if Chinese tech company advancing AI, with that advancement, is machine learning replacing designer in some of the process? So I happen to have some experience in that. So for the past couple of years, I've been focusing a lot on artificial intelligence related products. Some of the stuff we worked on is on voice technology design, such as Alexa or Google Home and all that, but in a Chinese setting. So I happen to work with a lot of machine learning engineers. I think one thing we actually didn't cover in the talk, which is actually a contrarian truth, based on my understanding, is that a lot of Chinese designers or product people, product person, product manager, if you will, people who have product thinking, when they work in artificial intelligence domain, they actually have a lot more interesting exposure or innovative exposure compared to their Western counterparts. I can give you example. I mean, I travel between North America and China. While most of my business, or clients are in China, I started to notice that a lot of North American designers or product people, they have not been embracing AI as much. I think it's not like a fault, or it's not they're doing something wrong. It's just like the industry is not as progressive in China as in China. But the drawback of that in China is that privacy is actually becoming more of a concern. So I think there's always a trade-off for any kind of advancement. So my argument is that yes, in China, you have more opportunity to work on artificial intelligence related projects, which you might not be able to touch on in the West, because China is almost too progressive on that. Say robotics or voice technology. It's very easy to find out companies that do that, and when you join that company or work with that company, you start to understand how that works. But only in the West, I'm not saying there isn't. Say Amazon or Google, like all that major player have that kind of exposure. But for a smaller startup, the size of that is not as similar as in China. But my biggest learning or counterculture shock is that we work on a lot of kids-related education robots back in last couple of years. And when I moved back to North America, I noticed that people do not embrace that kind of technology because it's actually their thing. I think it's very easy to understand. It's like technology for young toddler, right? Like 3 to 4 years old. It's too early. So I still think there's a culture difference in terms of how human beings in different culture embrace technology. So I will just add that point on AI. That's it.
My experience with AI is that once in university we had Alibaba showing a presentation where the artificial intelligence is designing the banners, right? So they're like saving money and design work on some simple banners, and they showed how it actually works, and that was kind of fascinating, I would say. So that was my relationship with artificial intelligence design in China. Okay.
I have seen. Hey,
Yeah.
sorry, Vlad. Yeah, I have seen an AI service like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I'm not sure whether Andy you remembers that. I think that the founder is actually your friend. It's like AI driven poster design service. Like you just write down. Yeah, art,
Yeah.
exactly. They have done that, but after almost 3 years, I think. Right now, I think like the actual working designer replacing services is tools like Canva, I would say, like Canva or similar products, which enables individual, like ordinary people just add on something.
My 2 cents is that Figma will actually at one point replace certain things designer do. I think they have a lot of potential to do that for automation and design automation. So it's really about how much data you collect. I think Figma is on the right path. For replacing designers, I would not think it's, I'm not sure whether it's a true argument about replacing. It's more about augmenting. It's more about empowering, because I don't think AI will replace creativity work. And if your work is actually focused on creativity, then you don't have to worry too much about it. That's it.
I have an interesting question that might connect my experience of working in China with Ben's. What is the experience on working with a B2B products in China, and how working forward to achieving more focus and be efficient with their products? So just a little bit of background. Me and Ben work in a company called Event Bank, and that was a B2B company for event organization and management. It was like for both sides, for the organizers of the events and for the attendees. It was a B2B and B2B2C product. Ben, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was as well as a question I picked on the list because it directly relates to my experience. Because me as a product manager, I always work for B2B product or B2B2C product. One key thing, and we discussed that when we prepare this session, is that if you look at most of the big success that everybody know in the Chinese internet, it was mostly so far B2C product. It was most of the innovation as well related to that coming from China is mostly today on the consumer space. It's a bit, from my point of view, a bit linked to all the things that we discussed over this session, to the fact that over the past 40 years, as Pine mentioned before, like the country opened, there was like a lot of low-hanging fruit to grab on the market. So companies were not that much focused on efficiency. They were just trying to grab the opportunity here on the market. Now we are entering a new phase, which I think will be very interesting for people working on B2B markets, where growth is slowing a bit in China. So companies will have to be more efficient to beat the competition. They will have to have better process, better software to make sure that they are the most efficient, that they can control their costs, then they can beat the competition. And I would not be surprised if in the coming years we see more and more B2B Chinese companies becoming giant and taking more and more market share even all over the world, the same way that we saw B2C company innovating first in the local market, then starting to export their products. This is really something that I think will be interesting to follow in the coming years due to those change in terms of growth on the local market.
Yeah, apparently I'm working in a B2B company right now. Can is a finance company, finance or accounting system for small and medium companies, but cross border. So our vision is, what the problem is, like if you run a company in China, then you need to follow of course you run in a company in every country, you need to follow their accounting guideline, right? And but the thing is, in China you use Chinese accounting software or use Chinese accountants, but in other country you use theirs, but they don't talk to each other, right? They don't work together with each other because the guidelines are different. The rules are a little bit different. It's not totally different, but different, a little bit different. So it's harder, and also like the somehow, I don't know why on Earth, but somehow the Chinese accounting software, the user experience is so much different from other like customer, like B2C, like even for example, like websites. It's so different. The way it organizes information is so different. So foreign entrepreneurs, they have very much difficulty to work with these systems in China. So we solve this problems like this, like cross-border problems. And my experience is, as Ben just mentioned, it's the same. It's generally it's an efficiency improving stage of the general economy, and it's had the general B2B trend or a topic that people which has been having more and more attention from people, from startups, from investors, from like general attention. It has been growing over the past, I would say, maybe 3 years to 4 years. 4 years ago, like no one cares, but it has been there. And if you read anything about Chinese economy and like especially the government guideline, their plan, it is to improve the efficiency in general. Like you might have heard, like 2025, this great giant plan. It is all about improving the efficiency, and yeah. So I would say it's achieving more focus, and like it's on the way. Brilliant. Yeah.
Should we invite raise hand friends or audience to the stage, or should we just pick up questions from this from the Q&A?
You can sort by a vote in the Q&A, and you see the top questions. And if there is someone who appears in the raised hand, we'll ask them to come on stage. But currently, we don't have any raised hands. So if there is, we'll definitely do that. I think we can jump to the most voted question by Peter. He's asking that he heard that in China workshops work less because people are expected to be told what to do versus bring their initiative. How much is true? I can share a little bit of how it worked for me, but it was mostly in the educational or academic context. So workshops are not often used, and like when they're used, it's I don't know, it's a little bit awkward, right? So there's like not so much openness and collaboration in the workshops. That's how I felt about it. So they are a bit less effective from my perspective. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so much less effective than the West, I would say, because I have some experience working with foreign companies, and it's basically, I would say, if you just run a workshop here in China in just an ordinary or average Chinese company, people don't know how to behave. I mean, a workshop. If you have many steps for people to do things, to involve people. But if you just make it like an open discussion, then I think right now people are more willing to talk about their opinion if the company culture is healthy, if there's no politics, right? But in general, I would say the work is organized like more hierarchical, in a more hierarchical way. In China, it's either boss idea or it's the KPI driven, and okay, we need to do this. This project is for this goal, and then the product manager or project manager would organize everything, and there will be like a review meeting for people to speak up. But it's actually very interesting. I'm not sure whether it could be normal, but right now it turns to be. I'm very used to it, because I give you an example, like for example, like if a product manager is organizing a feature and this project, this guy or girl might speak up, we want to do this, and this is our way to do it, and please speak up. And if people see problems, people would challenge that product manager. Or if there's something that if there's something in the plan that doesn't reveal itself about the purpose of that, for example, then people might challenge the product manager. Hey, what's the purpose of this? What's the why do you want to do this? What do you want to express in this thing or in this small feature? And it's another angle of the hierarchical way of communication. You know what I'm saying? Like it's basically you're the boss. You're speaking of 5 things. For the 3 of them, I get it, but the 2 of them you want to do, these 2 of them, I don't know why you want to do it. Please, please think through. And but I don't know. I don't know whether you should do that or not. But if you want to do that, you should think through and let me know. Or there's might be some other things that you might not mentioning, but. Like in general, what do you want? Please say through what do you want, and everything make it sense making. Like that's another way of in terms of like this workshop culture, I would say in China, like adopted. I'm not sure whether that's making sense.
I have found an interesting question that I think that I'll probably take. And it's going like this. Oh, my AirMeet is lagging a lot. I'm a product designer and I'm interested to learn product management. What tips or resources do you recommend for me? So for me, the thing that worked the best throughout my career has been Coursera. Coursera is just like magical. You have all the courses, all the information that you need. I'm constantly recommending courses to people that are wanting to expand their knowledge in a certain field. So I found a few courses on product management there, and they're like in the library for me to learn at some point as well. Another thing would be to generally think broadly about product. I would say, in a sense, that a good product designer is doing A to Z on the design side, on the product design side, maybe adding a little bit of business things to that, and also understanding of development would be kind of making that person product management. Just thinking of yourself being like a CEO of the product, not of the company, but of the product, I guess, is a good mentality to go. What do you guys think? Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Ben, maybe, do you have any ideas of what would be the best way for someone who did product design before to learn product management?
Yeah, I saw this question as well. I guess as well, all of you will be able to answer, because if I'm right, you all as well at some point work as a product manager. So I think we can all together answer this question. Me, the key point is that learning product management is a bit special, because you don't really have like official training to become product manager, even if you have more and more school, more and more boot camp to learn product management. If you are already working as a product designer, I guess, I hope that you have opportunity at some point to start doing a bit of PMing work. So my first advice will be take any opportunity that you have, ask any opportunity to maybe collaborate with a product manager, maybe take a bit of his responsibility on a specific project to learn with him. Learning product management comes with a lot of practice. It requires to have like lot of different skills, lot of different understanding, from understanding the business objective, focus on the user, delivering value, making sure that the project are properly executed. So you have a ton of things to learn. And the best way is to practice, to find an opportunity, either within your current job or either by working on a side project to start learning product management. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think my 2 cents is that you just have to, practice, or I think get an opportunity to practice that. I think I experienced some of the product management related work early in my career. Actually, it's kind of funny, where in the design consulting firm I worked at, I was running a lot of agile project management as a designer, because our product manager was more of a client-facing account manager. So he had no idea about how to run agile. So I picked up agile on my own, through some mentorship, and that became my first exposure to product management as a designer. And I think I gained a lot of my knowledge and from that experience. So I think you really need a opportunity to just get your hands dirty on that. Yeah, I noticed that. So right now we have Justin raising his hand. Should we invite Justin up?
Yep.
And one second, Justin, don't lower your hand, because then you will be off stage. Keep it raised as long as you're speaking.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, hi guys. Just wanted to ask, because you guys did discuss about the cross-cultural differences, where people like me, where we work in a place that East meets West, like in Singapore and Southeast Asia, do you guys think there's a balance between the cultural differences?
Yeah, I worked in Singapore before, 10 years ago, very early on in my career. I think Singapore is very unique, because you guys speak English and everything, business is operating English. There's a great advantage of running global companies there. I think in terms of work culture, I haven't been back for many years, but I feel it's a bit of a mix. Part of that feels kind of Chinese still to me. Part of that feels Western. It's definitely way more Western than China. Even more Western than Hong Kong, in a sense, I would say. to be very honest. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
So
I want to.
yeah. So when do we decide whether to use like a Western approach or Eastern approach? You see, like is there a balance towards it?
I think it's hard to even choose that. I think it's actually ingrained in your daily routine. You know, I think even for me, when I'm working with Chinese clients, I sometimes it's hard for me to even set aside for myself to I think you have to set certain kind of expectation. Let's say, for example, workshop, right? You know, say with Chinese clients, we expect to have the result for the workshop before we run the workshop, so that people don't have to use their brain during the workshop, because people don't discuss too much, especially if the boss is not there. So I think it's like situations like that you have to be a bit careful. But I think Singapore is very unique in the sense that you know, Western expats, you know, is distributed into the companies a lot more than say in China or even Shanghai, which is considered as one of the most internationalized cities in China. So Singapore has a lot of advantage for that. So I think if I will work in Singapore for now, I will embrace Western culture or Western methodology way more than other kind of methodologies. Yeah.
Maybe I can add on top of that. I think it's really hard to build collaboration, but it's possible. If I take my experience working in China, I was not speaking Chinese. I was working in a Chinese company, but international, and working in this mix of culture. And I think what makes it possible and successful is always the same thing in any organization, is to have a common ground of values of organizations that everybody shares. And this is what is hard to define. To give you an example, during my years at working in Beijing, we were working with Western software for communication, but we were working more in terms of pace with the Chinese culture. We were working most of the time in English to have a common language. We had, I would say, daily ritual in terms of social event, which were directly the social event of the Chinese culture. So it was kind of a mix. But what was important is that everybody share the same values, the same organization, the same understanding of how we will collaborate together, and we make it possible. So I guess it's harder because you have two different cultures. You need to define those rules, but it's possible. And as soon as everybody respects that, as soon as everybody is on board with that, then it can happen. Me, I learned a lot from Chinese colleagues who were doing the best to talk to me in English, to explain me how we will be collaborating together in a Chinese way. So it's really having this strong basis of value, culture, organizations that make it possible.
Yeah, I actually have some my personal experience about that, Justin. I also noticed you're from Zindit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We in my last job we actually were using Zindit actually. Yeah, the former company I served for, they are a company actually also registered in Singapore and also Indonesia. We were doing a social e-commerce platform in Indonesia, and with that we were using Zindit as the payment channel. Very very good tool. Like I would, yeah, very good service. Yeah. Also, like myself, before the COVID, I was actually involved with a startup which was doing electrical motor drives. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that. And we were working with a Taiwan company, and they are the manufacturer. And but right now that startup fails because of the challenge time. But then we were told, hey, if you guys are doing this, probably if you are able to register a company in Singapore, that will be making the business much more easier. And then we did that, and of course, then the CEO of the company, they're much more, they feel much easier to work with us, and yeah, so that's a sort of a trend that happening during the last few years, that you know, Chinese people, when they want to expand, they firstly expand in Southeast Asia, and Singapore is also a hub, and also, like, I'm sure you know about this, like Facebook and Google, they are setting up the Asia Pacific hub in Singapore, and that's which is covering China. And I think the key, my perspective is, the key of that is trust. I think it's Singapore is trusted by the West, and also trusted by China, and also, like, of course, like Southeast Asia, no other words to say, and and I think the key behind that trust is the mindset. Is basically, you guys can talk with the Western culture, and also, like, can talk with the Eastern culture, right? Like, that's all already deep in your mind. Like, you can just talk with, like, in your words, both methodologies, right? And you understand people are trying to express. I think that's the key. I don't know how I would choose in different methodologies, but I think you guys are in the sweet spot. Like, that's number one, and number two, I think it's a right now we're having a challenging time, the whole world, but I think that's with this time, if we handle it well, we can find a better way to talk to each other. I think that's what I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, thank you for your answers. It really answered my questions also. Thank you so much.
Thank you for Justin for joining us on stage. I just get you back to the audience. And I think we already had some really amazing Q&A and a really awesome talk by you guys. Maybe there's time left and you can stay for one more question. Is that okay for you? I got one question that I picked because I really like it myself. It's about in my opinion, we must embrace and study culture as a part of UX research. Any tips on how to do this best? Maybe one or two sentences what you would suggest to do this culture embracement best. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, maybe I can go. Yeah, so my key thing is to try to observe, try to learn about the target user, trying to learn about the user. Is talking with them is one way. Also, another way is to learn how they solve this particular problem, what tools they use, and by that, you know, your competitors, right? And there's a saying, like, the largest competitor of to-do apps is pen and paper, right? And so that's about knowing your mindset, or your will to learn about your target user, and with that you can have field research, you can have this panel group discussion, you can like interview, you can stay with them for a day. That's all the things you can do. But the key thing is this will.
I would have to go, so I'll answer very quickly if it's fine. For this one, I need to leave. I need to run to another meeting. I completely agree with what Pine just said. Listen, look as well at the culture difference. Try to identify what are the differences compared to your own world. You need to always have in mind that you have bias based on your own culture. and you will have to learn. Always stay very open. So I would say it's a basic of user research as well, but it applies even more when you are building a product which will have an impact internationally and which are targeting an audience with a very different culture. So listen, observe, learn. You need really to be proactive on all those things. I'll let you hear, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Sounds great. I'm just gonna add a simple point myself. I think design is actually like cooking. It's like cooking food. It's like if you're tasting European food versus American food or Japanese food, you know, it looks different, it tastes different, you know, it's being made in a different way, but it requires very similar ingredients. So I think when we're designing for cross-culture, it's like treat it as, you know, making foods. Let's say if you're in China designing for Japan, you know, respect Japanese food, right? And respect Japanese product. And it's not easy, but I think, you know, that's a mentality I would you know, advocate for.
For me, it would be coming actually from an online course by Howard Schultz, the founder and creator of Starbucks, at least CEO, if I'm not mistaken. And he was talking about how Starbucks was expanding to China, and he was talking about the benefits that Starbucks is giving to their employees, and how those benefits were not working for the Chinese locals, and how he actually switched it to be more family focused. He gave some bonuses to the parents of the employees, which totally changed the situation. So my point here is listening to people is very important, and be open to adjusting adjusting the way you used to do things. Yeah.
That's great last words. And since this is really not a global, but a glocal event, and you really brought it on point. You were locally, you had the cultural differences in there and had a global or glocal session, a really awesome session that fits perfectly to the 24 hours UX. And since there are still over 100 people on here, and I think it might go on like hours to listen to you guys. So we will stop this session right now, even if it's really awesome listening to you. Maybe if you have more time, you can hang around on the tables in the lounge area and meet people there if they have additional questions. And Vladi, you mentioned the Coursera before. Maybe you can also post a link to some material, learning material on the Miro board afterwards, so people can find it there, and just feel free to do courses on their own. Thank you again for this really, really amazing talk. You're awesome, and just join the other talks or maybe move to a table in the lounge and talk to each other for networking. Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot for organizing it. I know that's a lot of stress, a lot of work, and a lot of communication with people. So thank you guys for making it. I really love this conference. It's like truly global and builds like the perspective of user experience, and it's awesome. Thank you. And thanks all for the speakers.
Pleasure.